say first and foremost because it's proven. 50 states are using it. All 16 top-level cabinet agencies are using it. It's there and it's working. But I think most importantly, regardless of open source, it really always comes back to the requirements. What are your business, what are your functional requirements? At the end of the day, you need to look at all the options available to you, whether it's open source, whether it's actually proprietary systems. Take a look at what you need done, and then ultimately pick the best value for money. What has the best functionality for the right price? And I think you'll be surprised if you haven't looked already. Open source has very compelling value for money, and the functionality is pretty much beyond par for many proprietary systems. I think you can contribute a lot of that to just the open source community as a whole. The whole concept of transparency, being able to share the code, collaborate, feedback. It's amazing. Your government actually not only is a consumer of open source, but they're also contributing back to it. And this is a really exciting time. We're seeing some major initiatives, some major contributions going on. Obviously the White House is a contributor, as well as NASA, FCC. There's a number of different organizations within government that are contributing code back to the open source community. And quite frankly, my take on that is if they're taking the time to contribute back, they're obviously finding value in it in the first place. So again, it goes back to your requirements, goes back to functionality. Open source is a really good option for many, many different business problems people are looking to solve. Another part of that is that I feel that open source that's built on open standards really drives and opens up new opportunity. Obviously, one of the big value props for open source is the price. Quite frankly, if you can get more value for your money, you can potentially do more things for your end users with the same amount of money. They always tell us to do more with less. So the reality is, great, if I can actually get more for less, then I can actually finally do more with less. So I think this is a really compelling business case, financially at least, to consider open source. DLT Solutions has long been a proponent of open source in government. In fact, we were one of the early partners with Red Hat, for example. We were one of their first federal partners, really helping drive and evangelize open source within government. My role within DLT is the Chief Cloud Technologist, and as such, I actually run the DLT Cloud Advisory Group. So obviously the connection there is, what's the synergy? And I think it's important to realize that most of the marquee cloud services that are actually on the market today, the ones that we think of when we think of public cloud, many of them are actually built on open source software. Some contribute back, others actually take the open source software and make modifications and provide a service out on top of that. But ultimately, cloud and open source are very tightly intertwined. And I also think that open source is a really nice enabler for those government entities that are looking to get into cloud. Even if they're not ready to go full cloud yet, by leveraging open source and open standards, they're going to be able to be in a better position to actually leverage and move to a cloud when the time is right for them. If you haven't looked at open source, take the time to do so. I've mentioned the value for money that open source provides, and there's also the whole issue of the extremely high velocity of innovation taking place in those communities. So taking a look at open source is a very inexpensive opportunity, if you will. If you have some systems and you have an internet connection, you can go download open source right now and start playing around with proofs of concept or doing some initial development and really try to test the waters with it. It's not like it was 5-10 years ago where you had to go spend $500 million on a major project, hope you make the right bet today, and hope that 5 years from now that bet's going to pay off. This is something you can do right here, right now, very low cost. If you take that open source and you actually couple that with public cloud providers, you now don't have to worry about finding the hardware to put it on. You can actually take this open source software and put it out on an infrastructure cloud provider for dollars a day or less, depending on what you want to do. So this is a very inexpensive option to actually get working on open source products today and really seeing if they're the right fit for your organization and for your requirements.